Hello there. Welcome to the first edition of the Slouching towards Thatcham podcast, which aims to showcase the work of some of the best parent bloggers around. My name's Tim, and you may know me from my blog Slouching towards Thatcham, which charts the ups and downs of life as a 21st century father of three. This podcast has been inspired by the bloggers' keynote session at the BritMums Live conference, where 13 bloggers read their own posts aloud, an experience I found incredibly moving. So here's the plan. Every week I'll be joined by a special guest who will introduce and read one of their favourite posts for your listening pleasure, and I will do the same with one of mine. It's as simple as that. Bite-sized chunks of blogging brilliance. So without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce my very first guest blogger. It's mum of three, fellow Berkshire resident and Bibs and Mads Award finalist, Suzanne, from the blog 3 Children and It. Hi Suzanne.
Hello.
So before we start, why don't you start by telling us a little bit about you and the blog?
Okay, so my name's Suzanne, and as Tim's already said, and I have 3 children who are, well, when I first started blogging, the eldest was only 12, but now they are 15, 13 and 10. We also have a Cairn Terrier who I refer to on the blog as It. So I just always feel I have to clarify that the It refers to the dog and not my husband. So just to get that one out there. So so that's us really. And a little bit about my blog. So basically the strapline on my blog is the ups and downs of family life. So it really is an honest look at what it's like to be part of a growing family. And I really did swear from day one that I'd never gloss over the bad bits of parenting or paint an unrealistic picture of what it's like to bring up kids in the modern world, and I stand by that. So I often find that a lot of my readers are actually people with younger children, and they often refer to the fact that they read my blog to get hints and tips for the future. I think they're basically learning from my mistakes, really. But yeah, so that's us.
I definitely fall into that category as well. So now, could you give us a little background to the post you've chosen to read today?
Yeah, definitely. So quite a few of my posts are, I try to be, as I said, very honest, and often they are funny with a mix of serious in, but this one is probably more of a funny one, but it's just an anecdote of something that happened in our life. And the day I'm referring to is the last day of the school holidays. And just to clarify as well that when I talk about the OH, in case you aren't familiar with that expression, I'm talking about my other half.
Okay, in that case, I'll hand it over to you now to read your post, Are You a Proper Mum?
Having slipped over in the shower the previous evening, the teenager woke up on Friday morning with a wrist that looked like it was fighting a serious case of elephantiasis. She rarely complains about anything, so I knew that it must be bad. As I hadn't been to work for almost 2 weeks, I reluctantly laid the guilt to one side and left for the office, silently wishing that it had been her texting hand that had been forced out of action. Do teenagers do anything that doesn't involve their mobile phones? Before you have me down as a completely heartless cow, please rest assured that I did help her to get dressed before handing her a bag of frozen peas on my way out of the door. An hour later, a message came through on my phone. I've rung NHS Direct, yep, all by herself, and the lady said that I may have broken it. Okay, let's not overreact here. I mean, what would the lady know? She might be NHS related, but she has to say that, doesn't she? So instead of racing back home, I suggested that the OH might like to spend a little quality time with his offspring, as he hadn't managed to take any time off during the Easter break. I'm a master at gentle persuasion. Let's just say that 5 hours at the doctor's, followed by A&E, wasn't quite the kind of quality time he was expecting. To cut a very long story short, the suspected fractured wrist turned out to be nothing more than a bruise. Of course, we were all relieved, but I have to admit to feeling a tiny bit disappointed. Yes, I know that sounds weird, but none of my children have ever broken anything, and I've always felt like a slightly lesser person for it. Don't all proper mothers have to sign their child's cast at some point in their lives? So I've compiled a list, one that proves that I am a proper mum, without the need to nurse my child's broken bone to full health? So if you can answer yes to at least 14 of the 16 statements below, I think that you are equally deserving of the proper mum crown. 1. You've attacked and conquered a head lice infestation. 2. You've retrieved an escaped floater from the bath and or swimming pool, the latter being a particularly embarrassing incident that is best forgotten. 3. You've taken your child to hospital to get something professionally removed from a place it should never have been. In this case, a Playmobil shin pad firmly inserted up the left nostril. 4. You've cried over your child's friendship woes. 5. You've threatened a small child, preferably not yours, at the local soft play or park in an attempt to stick up for your own offspring. 6. You found yourself cleaning up sick, again at 3 a.m. 7. You spent an entire evening sewing on Cub, Scout or Brownie badges and have a thumb that looks like a pincushion to prove it. 8. You've apologised to your child for losing your temper. Who actually is the grown-up here? 9. You've watched your child do something that there is no way on this earth that you would do yourself. By the time they reach 13, you will have lost count on this one. Trust me. 10. You sat through and actually enjoyed an episode of Peppa Pig. Insert favourite TV programme at the moment. Even laughing in inappropriate places. 11. You've used the following phrases more than once. If I've told you once, I've told you 1,000 times. Life isn't fair, get used to it. Do you think I'm made of money? What did your last slave die of? 12. You've successfully fended off the ugly stares of the older generation who look at your screaming toddler with disdain. Sainsbury's was the lucky location of this particular incident for us. 13. You've blamed the tooth fairy's tardiness on a temporary case of amnesia. 14. You've scraped burnt remnants off the toast, or fish fingers, or indeed any other food item that can go under the grill, and your children have accepted that it's just a bit sunburnt. 15. You've temporarily lost your child in the airport, supermarket, or shopping centre and felt like the worst parent in the world. And 16. You've been more soiled pants than you care to remember, but hey, they're all fully potty trained. Does a happy dance. What it boils down to, my friends, is this. Broken bones or no broken bones. We rock.
Thank you, Suzanne. Who doesn't love a good list? And this is most definitely a good list. For what it's worth, I scored 9 out of 16. I'll leave you to guess which 9. Does that make me a proper mum then?
Not bad, not bad. Well, yeah. I'm hoping that as the years go by, you'll score a lot more than 9. But I'm also, I did feel a bit bad that I referred to mums in this because I reckon dads probably qualify as well on that one. So.
I'm sure my score will go up over the coming years. Anyway, I'm willing to bet that many of you will have scored far higher than I did. Thanks, Suzanne, for joining me on this week's podcast. It's been a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
If you want to read more of Suzanne's writing, go to her blog 3 Children and It at 3childrenandit.com, where 3 is the number 3. Or follow her on Twitter at 3childrenandit, again spelt with the number 3. I'll attach links to Suzanne's blog and Twitter and to the post she's just read on the show notes over on slouchingtowardsthatcham.com. We've just heard Suzanne talk about what it means to be a proper mum, so for my post this week, I've picked one called Am I a Good Dad? Am I a good dad? Martin, over at Inside Martin's Thoughts, recently asked himself that very question. I responded by pointing out that the fact that he was willing to put the question out there is a pretty good indication for starters. Of course, the reality is that there is no easy, quantifiable scale of goodness when it comes to assessing our abilities as either fathers or mothers. The only thing that's certain is that there's no such thing as perfect parenting. It got me thinking about how we might go about defining what good is in terms of parenting ability. I'll be the first to admit that I have days when I'm a great dad, and at least as many others when I'm not. Moments that, frankly, make me cringe at the memory of getting things pretty much 100% wrong. If we're being honest, we can all draw up lists that are overflowing in both the credit and debit columns, right? So that got me thinking that maybe good parenting is not so much about individual events as following a more general set of guiding principles. Here's a set of 10 that I've come up with. 1. Be there for my children. Not just physically there, but actually 100% there in spirit too. Even if that means putting down my phone and not writing that really witty tweet about how I'm spending time with my kids. 10 minutes of undivided attention beats an hour of divided attention any day. Quality over quantity. 2. Listen as much as tell. It never ceases to amaze me how much we can learn from our children, and how insightful their unfiltered, unprejudiced view of the world can be. You know that old saying about how children should be seen, not heard? Utter codswallop. Listening to our kids makes them feel valued, and sometimes teaches us a thing or two too. 3. Challenge their imaginations. Read stories, play games, ask questions. Let them be creative without imposing the rules of the real world on them, and allow them to make the worlds that they want to make. There's plenty of time for them to live in the real world when they grow up. Without imagination, there's no invention. Without invention, there's no progress. 4. It's okay to get things wrong. Give them the confidence to try new things and make mistakes, while offering them the reassurance that I'll catch them if they fall, and help them learn from their errors. Perfection equals stagnation. 5. Be open-minded. Allow them to follow their own path and become their own person, rather than the person I want them to be, or the one I wish I was. If I end up with children who are nothing more than mini-me's, I'll have failed as a father. 6. Love is unconditional, not reciprocal. No matter how badly behaved they are, or how angry I am with them, or how much they say they don't love me anymore, I'll always kiss them good night, so they go to sleep knowing they're loved. No one is keeping score. 7. Do the right thing, not the popular thing. Accept that there will be times when I have to make decisions that are right in the long term, but will make me unpopular in the short term. Don't let that stop me from making them anyway. Parenting is a marathon, not a sprint. Nor is it the X factor. The success of my parenting is not determined by the outcome of a popularity contest. 8. Embrace imperfection. Recognise that I'm not perfect, but never use that as an excuse. Be aware of my shortcomings, but don't be constrained or ruled by them. Instead, know the things I do well, and focus on doing them better and more often. And recognise that my kids will be just as imperfect as I am, and that's okay. 9. Set an example. Not so much do as I say, not as I do, just do as I do. What better role model could I give them than one of the 2 people they see every single day of their lives? 10. Keep asking myself the question. Never stop asking myself, am I a good dad? The moment I take it for granted is the moment I stop being a good father. And that's it for this episode of the Slouching Towards Thatcham podcast. If you'd like to listen to future episodes, you'll find them published on the blog and also on iTunes. You can follow me on the blog at slouchingtowardsthatcham.com, on Twitter at ThatchamDad, and on various other social media channels that I won't bore you with by listing in their entirety now. You'll find links to all the above, plus Suzanne's links, in the show notes on the blog. All that remains for me is to say thank you all for listening to this podcast, and hopefully you'll join me again next week. Until then, goodbye.